Hey guys, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam. Today I am in the beautiful city of Madrid for a business convention this week. And I thought I'd make a video about something that I see very often when looking especially at videos about self improvement or manifestation, how to be better, and all this kind of stuff. And it is very often the case that the advice that we get is trying to get a result, but doesn't really seem to understand the precursors to that result or the underlying conditions that need to be in place to get that result. So people talk about being in flow, for example. People talk about forgiveness. People talk about healing. But I think they are usually or often being mentioned in the wrong order. And what that does is it either doesn't produce the result, or it gives you the result, but then you lose it because you were kind of sort of jump upward to a different level, and gravity just brings you back down. The thought for the video arose when facilitating a session with someone who is very, very good at attaining states of elation and bliss, but who at the same time often feels depressed and unable to return to those states, right? And part of the work that we were discussing is what is affecting that buoyancy, right? Why is it that we are so dense that even though we can propel ourselves upwards with kind of rocket fuel, be it ecstatic dance or psychedelics or whatever, but then we come back down, as opposed to being like a balloon that has a certain natural buoyancy that can keep it indefinitely up there in the air. And so I thought I'd make a video about this. And this is by no means an ultimate formula or the only framework by which to see this, but at least it gives a little bit of a way to not skip certain steps in the basic sequence of things. So therefore I called the video Feel, Heal, Forgive, Flow. And maybe I was trying to be a little bit catchy in all fairness, but I do believe that the sequence is at least correct. And so let's start with the end in mind, right? So if you take the flow element, that state of mind, if we can call it that, in which time disappears, self disappears, everything is unified and clear and peaceful and creative. Now, we love it. We love tapping into those states of mind, but it's probably fair to say that to stay in a state of mind like that permanently, it's something's going to get in the way if we want to stay there, and that is our capacity to have forgiven and integrated all the different aspects of ourselves and all the different aspects of our life. And so forgiveness in this case stands for the ability to truly come to terms with the way things are, right? And not only psychologically, but also physiologically. In other words, does our system still contract and go into reactivity when reminded of certain things or presented with certain circumstances or whenever we come across certain people? If that is the case, that lack of the ability, or rather the status of having come to terms and forgiven those things, if we can call it that, creates a contraction in the system which prevents flow, right? So So you can't have permanent flow if you have not cleaned the house completely. Nisargadatta Maharaj once said that cleaning after yourself seems to be the rule by which the universe works, right? So by that he was expressing how important it is to have, in essence, forgiven, integrated, and come to full terms with the way things are. The system is therefore completely free to express, experience, and create, and that in turn leads to flow quite naturally, rather than having to do certain practices or have a certain mindset that puts us occasionally into flow. Yeah. But here's then the next challenge in line, which is, well, if we want to have the capacity to forgive, we need to have gone through a healing process. Yeah. In other words, by the time we forgive, forgiveness is more of an outcome, right? So just like flow is an outcome to forgiveness, forgiveness is the outcome of the process of healing. This is an equally important lesson because we often are told that we ought to forgive, or people are trying to actively forgive and give things a pass, or try to see the sunny side of the street, or try to see the good side of a person that they've been dealing with difficulty, or that perhaps they've been offended by. But it's impossible to forgive another if you have not healed within. We're jumping a step. And I'll say it again, forgiveness is an outcome of having done the internal work of healing. It's not something that you can do. If we skip the healing element of the process and we try to go straight to forgiveness, we'll either start to psychologize and sort of kind of pretend that we have reasons to forgive, and therefore push our emotions down, or we will encounter failure to forgive, right? I don't think it can be done. It's in realizing that the other, whether it is a situation or a person, is not other. That realization comes from a healing process, and then forgiveness happens of itself. When Jesus said to love others as you love yourself, he was not saying that we should love them in the way that we love ourselves. But to love other as yourself means to realize that the other is none other than your very self. And thereby love flows automatically, right? You don't have to squint really hard and try to or try to pretend that you love the other like your very self, because that's impossible. It's only in seeing the other as yourself that you can love them as yourself. So then healing precedes forgiveness, and forgiveness is an outcome of the healing process, and forgiveness precedes flow, which is an outcome of the of forgiveness as a state of mind. And then we get to the more fundamental part of things, which is that you cannot heal if you don't feel, right? If you follow this channel for a while, or in case you're new to it, I am really, really big on somatics, right? I'm really big on embodiment. In fact, there's a little $7 embodiment course here offered in the channel. If you want to get started with understanding what embodiment is about. And very often we try to heal on a psychological level, but the rubber never quite hits the road because there is an innate reluctance to feel. And it is the orientation towards feeling the real psychosomatic bite of emotions that we carry within us and trauma that we carry within us that ultimately does the healing for us. it has taken humanity quite a while to come around and realize this. While the ancient traditions have known this for a long time, but now we have books like The Body Keeps the Score, or all these books that or all these experts that now tell you that in the feeling is the healing, right? So fortunately, we've caught up with this kind of knowledge now. It's very prevalent, and yet it is very often the case that we still try to heal from circumstances without going below the neck, right? So our attention keeps naturally pointing upwards into a thought mode where our head starts spinning in an attempt to heal a circumstance, and that never really does work. So this entire chain of causation then leads us to conclude that the one thing that we need to do for that entire process to unfold, all the way from feeling to healing to forgiveness to flow, is a reorientation of the way in which we point our attention. Our attention is by default pointing to the head, so to the thinking mind, as an intrinsic part of the mechanisms of repression, so that we don't have to feel, because feeling at a certain stage in our life is very dangerous and very counterproductive, and it requires a certain new understanding and a retraining of our attention to point our attention instead of outwards, inwards, and instead of upwards, more below the neck. So to learn to feel really that constriction in our throat when we are not feeling well, or in our heart or in our belly. All these affects that live below the neck that we've cut ourselves off from, and with which we have a very contentious relationship. That relationship needs to be completely reevaluated, re-understood, but also reestablished from a direct sensing perspective, that we make a new handshake with that part of ourselves that we dislike when it flares up. So as we retrain, as we come to understand this, and we start to retrain our attention to feel more, that feeling more and more directly, more clearly, and with less of a contentious attitude, leads to the healing. The healing, when done systematically, leads to a way of using our mind which is forgiving by nature. So we become more forgiving by nature, and that in turn results in states of mind that are very beautiful, very peaceful, very creative, which can potentially be attained by making certain jumps or doing certain substances or practices. But to sustain them, for the buoyancy of our mind to become just far less dense, that chain cannot really be avoided. And if we try to, as I explained, skip steps, we simply get stuck, or we find ourselves trying to psychologize or pretend that we have in fact healed or forgiven, when in fact that's simply not the case, and life will keep showing that to us by circumstances still affecting us in a way that is reactive or repetitive. So that's today's video. A little reminder that we can't skip steps, but that fortunately the steps and the sequence is known, therefore we don't have to, and that also, even though the sequence is known, that we will be facing internal resistance to follow that sequence because of the way that our mind develops in our early years, which needs to be re-educated over time. I hope that you find that video handy. I'm curious to hear what you make of it. And I'll be back with more pretty soon. Do like, share, and subscribe if you think the video and the content is valuable. Cheerio. Bye-bye.